Hey guys, it's Brooke, and today I'm going to be filming my entire vinyl record collection video, and I'm really excited about this video because these are my favorite kinds of videos to watch on YouTube. I have my vinyl organized by alphabetical order, in order of first name instead of last name, even though that doesn't technically make sense. And then if I have like more than one by an artist, I just have it in order of how it came out. So to start off, the first album that I have is Highway to Hell by AC/DC, and my favorite song on this one is Girls Got Rhythm. My next one is Adele's 25 album, and my favorites on this one, I have a lot of them, are When We Were Young, Water Under the Bridge, All I Ask, and A Million Years Ago. And then I get into the all-time low albums, which I have several of, and this one is Nothing Personal, and it is on this really cool clear vinyl with blue and red splatter in it, and I used to say this was my favorite colored vinyl. I don't know if it's my favorite one that I have now, but this was definitely my favorite to begin with. And my favorite songs on this one are Lost in Stereo, Stella, and Hello Brooklyn. Then I have another one by them. I have All Time Low, Don't Panic, the It's Longer Now version, and my favorites on this are Oh Calamity, I love that song, and the acoustic version on here of Backseat Serenade. And this one also is a really cool colored pressing. It's like cream white, and it has this like magenta color in it. It's actually more of a maroon, I think, but it shows up magenta on here. So yeah. Then I have my final one by them, which is their 2015 release, Future Hearts, and this is on a plain kind of a pale blue vinyl like this. And my favorites on this one are Missing You and Cinderblock Garden. Then I have the classic cliche Tumblr girl vinyl Arctic Monkeys AM, and I love this record and I don't care. Favorite songs on this one are Do I Want to Know, Are You Mine, One for the Road, Arabella, and Knee Socks. Then I have a record that is one of my favorite records in my collection and is very special to me, and this is Introducing the Beatles, which is the same album as Please Please Me if you look at the Beatles albums now, but this is actually like literally the first Beatles album that ever came out in America. And this was my grandparents' copy of it that my grandmother literally went and bought like when the Beatles first came out in America, and I had to beg her for years to give this to me, and she finally did. And so this is one of my favorite things that I have, not just because of the album, like I love the album and the actual music on it, but the fact that it's hers and that it's the original one is really special to me, and I really love this one. And my favorite songs on this one are Misery and Boys, and both of those are such underrated Beatles songs, especially Misery, so go listen to that. Then I have another one that also belongs to them, and this is Meet the Beatles, which I believe is called With the Beatles now, but it still has the same first cover. And my favorite on this one is definitely All My Loving. And then I have this one, which is the last earlier Beatles album that I have, and this one actually is also not mine, and is, well, I mean, it's mine, but I got it from someone in my family. And this is the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl, and this was actually my stepdad's album, and it has a cool gatefold too. And my favorite song on this one is Dizzy Miss Lizzy. I get into the more modern repressings of Beatles albums, and this one is Revolver, which is, first of all, my favorite Beatles album ever, and probably one of my top 5 favorite albums of all time. And I have a lot of favorites on this one, so you're gonna have to bear with me. My favorites are Taxman, Eleanor Rigby, Love You Too, and 401. And 401 is one of the greatest songs of all time, and it is underrated, so just throwing that out there. Then I have this one, what some would call the greatest album of all time. I just got this for Christmas from my brother and his wife, and it is the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And yeah, this is, I think, like the 50th anniversary version of it, or maybe 60th anniversary. I think it might actually be 60th anniversary. And this has the iconic gatefold in it that I just love. Then I have the White Album, which my whole family gives me a hard time about. And anytime I talk about the Beatles, my pop says, oh yeah, the White Album, it was so weird, and all of that. And this whole album is kind of hit or miss. Like, there are songs on here that I love, and there are songs on here that I literally cannot listen to, aka Revolution number 9, which I've only listened to twice in my whole life and refuse to ever to listen to again. But my favorites on here are While My Guitar Gently Weeps and Helter Skelter. And While My Guitar Gently Weeps is one of my top 10 favorite songs of all time. So, like, the really, really good songs on here make up for the crazy ones. And then I finally have Abbey Road, which is one of the most famous albums that they have. And this was actually one of the first vinyl records that I ever got, so it's kind of special to me. And my favorites on this are Oh Darling, Here Comes the Sun, Something, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. And then next, moving on, I have Blink-182's Enema of the State, which it's really awesome that I have on vinyl. And this one's very similar to the All Time Low one in the way it looks. And it has also kind of a clear with a red and blue splatter on it. And my favorites on this one are Adam's Song and The Party Song. Next, I have one which has been passed down to me out of my mom's personal collection of vinyl records, and this is the Best of Blondie, which I love because I've always loved Blondie, and this has a lot of great songs on it, but my favorites are The Tide is High, Hanging on the Telephone, and Call Me. The next album is The Devil and God by Brand New, and I also just got this one for Christmas from my brother and his wife, and my whole family is making fun of me right now and calling this satanic, but oh well. My favorite songs on this are the first 3, which all kind of go together, which are Sowing Season, Milestone, Jesus Christ, and then I also love You Won't Know, which is later on in the album. I have Cage the Elephant's first album, which I love so much. I love this album, and my favorites on this are In One Ear and Lotus, and I think that In One Ear is the most iconic, like, opening song on a debut album of all time, and also Lotus is really underrated, so listen to both of those, listen to the whole album, this is the best. Then next I have Catfish and the Bottlemans, The Ride, and I love Catfish and the Bottlemen. I actually prefer The Balcony, but I really love this album too, and I'm happy to have it on vinyl. And my favorite songs on this one are Twice, Soundcheck, and Heathrow. Then I have a Doors album, which is Doors, LA Woman, and this is one of my favorite Doors albums. This is one of their, like, least popular albums, but I got this one pretty soon after I started my record collection, and I've always loved this album. And my favorites on this are Love Her Madly, Been Down So Long, and Cars Hiss By My Window. Been Down So Long is one of my favorite songs ever. I feel like I'm saying this about a song on, like, every record, but I love that song and no one ever talks about it, so go listen to Been Down So Long by The Doors. And then I have another one that came out of my stepdad's vinyl collection that I've stolen, and it is The Doors' Greatest Hits, and this has a lot more of their popular songs on it. This also has several songs from LA Woman on it, but my favorites on this one are Hello, I Love You, and Break On Through to the Other Side. Next we have Desperado by the Eagles, which is one of my favorite albums, and this album is really cool because it actually feels like leather when you touch it. It just kind of goes with the entire theme of the Eagles, and this has Desperado on it, which is one of my favorite Eagles songs of all time, and has probably my favorite lyrics of all time in it. But my favorites on this album are Tequila Sunrise, Desperado, and Saturday Night. And I have the Eagles' classic Hotel California, which this was the first record that I got with my new record player, and I got this as a gift with my new record player when I opened my new record player, because I originally did have a Crosley Cruiser, but now I have this Victrola turntable, which I love. And I got it like about a year ago, and this I got with it. And I love this album. My favorites on it are Life in the Fast Lane, Wasted Time, and Pretty Maids All in a Row. And then we get into the Fall Out Boy releases. This is my favorite Fall Out Boy album and one of my favorite albums of all time, Infinity on High. And this has a lot of songs that I love on it. And this is also a clear vinyl with a splatter pressing, with this really pretty blue and white colored splatter. Favorite songs on this is actually the deluxe edition, which I love. And I think it's funny because at the end of the original album, there's the little robot voice that says "now press repeat," but like they didn't edit that very well when they put that on the deluxe edition on vinyl, because at the end of the standard album, the voice says "now press repeat," and then at the end of the bonus tracks, it says it again, and that cracks me up every time I listen to this. But my favorites on this one are "I'm Like a Lawyer," "Hum Hallelujah," "Bang the Doldrums," and "GINASFS." I have my little tiny baby Save Rock and Roll by Fall Out Boy, which is the only 10-inch vinyl that I have, and it is on this kind of translucent red color. And my favorites on this are "Alone Together," "Just One Yesterday," "Miss Missing You," "Young Volcanoes," and "Rat-a-Tat." And I love "Rat-a-Tat" because that has Courtney Love in it, and the first time that I heard that I started screaming because Courtney Love is in it. Then finally from Fall Out Boy, I have American Beauty, American Psycho, which is probably their most mainstream album, and this is on kind of a clear with a blue and white smoky vibe to it, and I really like that. And my favorites on this one are Uma Thurman, Jetpack Blues, 4th of July, and Twin Skeletons. I have the last one that I've stolen from my stepdad, which is Foreigner's Double Vision album. And the reason why I took this from him is because him and my mom and I all went to go see Foreigner last February, and so I listened to this to kind of get ready for the concert. But this is actually my favorite Foreigner album. I've listened to all of their stuff now, and this is my favorite, so he just hasn't gotten this back. And my favorites on this one are Blue Morning, Blue Day, Double Vision, and Spellbinder. And then I have my favorite album of all time, my Holy Grail album by my favorite band, my favorite album of all time, and definitely the most played vinyl I have. I've probably played this 300 times, I kid you not. This is Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, and I wish I could say that every song on this album is my favorite, and I'm pretty sure I list like 6 of the 11 as my favorites, but bear with me. This is the greatest, and it is, to me, the greatest album of all time, and I love it. So, my favorites on this one are Secondhand News, Dreams, The Chain, I Don't Want to Know, and Gold Dust Woman. And that is narrowing it down a lot. And then I have another album from Fleetwood Mac, which is their album Mirage, and this is my favorite cover art on an album of all time because it has this beautiful picture of Lindsay and Stevie dancing and Christine McVie, and then it has John and Mick on the back. And I've always loved this album and the cover art for this album. And my favorites on this are Can't Go Back, That's Alright, Gypsy, Only Over You, and Hold Me. And Only Over You is my favorite song Christine McVie has ever done, and it is so underrated. And then we have a Green Day album, and my favorite Green Day album at that, Insomniac. And my favorite songs on this are Stuck With Me and Brain Stew, the classic single off of this. Then I also have one of my favorite vinyls in my collection. I'm sorry, vinyls, that's not a word. Vinyl in my collection. Room 93 by Halsey, her original debut EP, and it is on the beautiful original turquoise blue that I love, and this, just everything about this makes me so happy, and I'm such a big Halsey fan. And my favorites on this one are Is There Somewhere and Trouble. And I of course have her debut album Badlands, and this is also one of my favorite albums of all time. And I have it on the original baby pink vinyl, which just goes with the whole aesthetic of this album so well. And my favorites on this song are Colors, Haunting, Control, Young God, and Ghost. So, yeah. Then, folks, we have My husband, the love of my life, my very favorite Harry Styles self-titled album on vinyl. I love everything about this, and I'm not just saying that because it's him. Like, this album is literally, I don't know how he did it, but this album, if I had to summarize my entire music taste all put together with one album, it would be this. And this is a wonderful debut album, and I adore every single song on it. But my favorite ones are Sign of the Times, Carolina, Two Ghosts, Only Angel, Kiwi, and Ever Since New York. And I do have the white vinyl, which is the only other pressing of it besides the black vinyl. And yes, here's my boy. I have another classic album that I adore, which is Dreamboat Annie by Heart. And this is actually the only Heart album that I have on vinyl, but I love a lot of their music. I love the Wilson sisters, and this has pretty much most of their greatest hits on it, probably with the exclusion of Barracuda. And my favorites on this one are Magic Man, Crazy on You, and White Lightning and Wine. And I have Hozier's debut album, and I love him. My brother actually got me really into him, and he's just one of my favorite current indie people who's out there. And my favorites on this album are Jackie and Wilson, Sedated, and It Will Come Back. And then I have Joan Jett and the Blackhearts album, which is literally just called Album. And I bought this probably 6 months after I got my record player, actually in a music shop, so I thought it was really cool that I bought this actually in a music shop. I'm pretty sure I bought this just because I really love this cover art, which I also do love the album, but I love this cover, and this is a cover that I would totally get framed and put up just because I love it. But I do also love the songs, and my favorite songs on this are Fake Friends, Everyday People, and Coney Island Whitefish. Next, I have another classic 60s album that I have copped out of my grandparents' collection, and it is The Kinks' You Really Got Me, which obviously has their smash hit song, You Really Got Me, on it. And my favorites on this are Beautiful Delilah, You Really Got Me, and Got Love If You Want It. And then we have my ultimate classic basic Tumblr girl record, and this is the very first record I ever got with my turntable, and my first turntable was the turquoise blue Crosley Cruiser, and I'm proud of it, and I am that basic, and here I am. And I still love this album to this day, and yes, I love Lana. Lana's my fave, and here is my proof of how much of a millennial Tumblr girl I am. My favorite songs on this album are Off to the Races, Blue Jeans, Diet Mountain Dew, National Anthem, and Video Game. Then I have my second and my favorite album by her, which is Paradise, which some people don't consider to be a full album, but I consider it to be a full album. And my favorites on this are Ride, American, Blue Velvet, and Bel Air. And then finally, I have Ultraviolence, which I also love. And my favorites on here are Cruel World, Ultraviolence, and Old Money. And I have the classic Led Zeppelin 1. I'm actually trying to get all of the Led Zeppelin 1 through 4, which is not going very well because this is the only one that I have so far. I really want to get Led Zeppelin 2 because that's actually my favorite out of the 4 of them. But so right now, I just have Led Zeppelin 1, which I do love. This is a great album. A fantastic debut album for them, and my favorites on this are Good Times, Bad Times, and Communication Breakdown. Then I have one more that was my grandmother's. Actually, I think that's a lie. I think there are some more of hers in here, but this is Boots by Nancy Sinatra, which obviously has the classic These Boots Were Made for Walking on it, and has some other bops on it, including I Move Around, In My Room, and Flowers on the Wall, which are my 3 favorite songs on this album, and I love this. I love that I have this album on vinyl. I have my Neck Deep, Life's Not Out to Get You, and this album is very important to me because this came out in 9th grade when I was having a lot of personal problems with school, and this album, as well as Badlands, because that came out around the same time, just got me through so much in my life, and I love this album so much. It also has this beautiful cover art. It has this gatefold, which is insane. And it also is on a beautiful yellow, orange, and red vinyl. And my favorites on this one are Citizens of Earth, Gold Steps, Lime Street, and December. Then I have, from one of my favorite bands of all time, the classic Nirvana MTV Unplugged Live in New York album. And my favorite songs on this, which by the way are actually not my favorite songs, like as far as everything that's on the track list, because obviously they played a lot of the songs off of Nevermind and In Utero live. But my favorite songs, like, that they performed live in this performance are The Man Who Sold the World, All Apologies, and Where Did You Sleep Last Night? This is actually the only vinyl that I have by Nirvana, despite them being my second favorite band of all time. I had Bleach, which is one of the ones that I also got when I first got my first record player, but that pressing just absolutely does not work, so I excluded it from my collection because I have never listened to that album all the way through because it does not work. Then I've got Panic at the Disco's Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die, and I love this album, although I can never say the title correctly. And my favorites on this are This Is Gospel, Vegas Lights, Nicotine, Girls, Girls, Boys, and Colorful. Then I have the first of my Paramore albums. Love Paramore. They're another one of my favorite bands of all time. And this is Riot. And my favorites on this are For a Pessimist, I'm Pretty Optimistic, Let the Flames Begin, Crush, 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 Misery Business, and Fences. Then I have Paramore's self-titled album, and I have a lot of favorites on this because it's a long album, and I also really love the cover art and the back cover art and the whole presentation of this album as a whole. Unfortunately, I don't have a colored pressing of it, but I would love to have one. And my favorites on this one are Now, Grow Up, Last Hope, Proof, Holiday, and I'm Not That Angry Anymore. Then I have their most recent release, After Laughter, which was my favorite album of 2017 alongside Harry's album. And this album was just so important to me this year, and this was like the soundtrack of the year for me, and every single song on this album is very important to me, and I love this one, and I was so happy to receive this for Christmas. And this is also on this really cool marbled gray pressing, and I'm jealous because I really want the teal pressing, but there are only like 1,000 of those in existence ever, and so I doubt I'm ever gonna get one of those, but that's okay. And my favorites on here are Fake Happy, 26, Pool, and Idol Worship. Then I have, this is one of my most prized albums in my collection because of the pressing, which is the white with the blood splatter pressing that is no longer available. I know there have been several. There was like a blue and orange. There's a marble green that's really pretty, but this is my favorite pressing of this that has ever come out, and I'm so happy that I own this. And this is, of course, Pierce the Veil's A Flair for the Dramatic, their debut album under the name Pierce the Veil. And my favorite songs on this are Currents Convulsive, I Would Rather Die Than Be Famous, and Falling Asleep on a Stranger. Then I have Pierce the Veil Misadventures, which is another album that I absolutely adore. There seems to be a theme here. And this is maybe actually my favorite pressing that I have right now. It seems pretty simple, but it's red with this kind of white marbling splatter detail on it. And this is my favorite pressing that was released at all of this album because there's just the plain red and there's just the plain white. But I'm so happy that I have this one. This is the Hot Topic one. And I love this album. This was probably my favorite album that came out in 2016. And my favorites on this one are Dive In, Floral and Fading, Phantom Power, and Ludicrous Speed, underrated. Gold Medal Ribbon, underrated, and Bedless. Then I have the classic Californication by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I have a lot of favorites on this, but my favorites that I narrowed down are Scar Tissue, another one of my favorite songs of all time, Other Side, Get On Top, Purple Stain, and Road Tripping. Now we have reached my girl, Stevie Nicks, and this is her debut album, Belladonna, and I love everything about this album. This album is everything I want to be in life, and I love everything about this. And my favorites on here are Belladonna, After the Glitter Fades and Leather and Lace, but I love every single song on this record, and I love everything about this record. I was actually wrong. That was not the last one that I've stolen from my stepdad, because this was his too, but he never used it and underappreciated it, so I definitely took it back from him. And this is Stevie Nicks' third solo album, Rock a Little, and love this album. Of course, I've said that about every single one, but my favorites on here are I Can't Wait and Some Become Strangers. I have the Stevie Nicks 24 Karat Gold collection, which is songs that she wrote in the 60s all the way through, I think, the 90s, and just now put out a few years ago. And I actually went to see her on the tour for this, and my mom bought me this for Christmas the year after we saw this concert. And I love this album. I love the gatefold on the inside, because it's all of these pictures from her life and all of these people. Except my only complaint is homegirl must have been really mad at Lindsay when she put this project together, because I have analyzed this so hard, and there's not a single picture of Lindsey Buckingham in this whole gatefold, which, if you know anything about Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac, is absolutely crazy for her. So I always say that she must have been irritated with Lindsay when she put this together, because he is not in there one time. Every other member of Fleetwood Mac is in there. Tom Petty's in there. Don Henley's in there, but Lindsay just did not make the cut on this one, which cracks me up. But I'm also like, what are you doing? And my favorites on this are Lady, a song about Lindsay, Hard Advice, Carousel, and The Dealer. Then we have another one of my girls, Miss Taylor Swift, with her Red album, which is probably my favorite album that she's ever done. And on this one, my favorites are Red, the title track, underrated, All Too Well, Sad, Beautiful, Tragic, The Lucky One, Starlight, and Begin Again. Then I have 1989, and I just got this from my best friend Bella for my birthday. I love it. I'm so excited to have it in my collection. And my favorites on this are Style, Wildest Dreams, This Love, I Know Places, and Clean. This also has a really cool gatefold too, which is kind of like the Stevie one with all the Polaroids. I have my first album that I own by the White Stripes. I actually cannot pronounce the name of this album, but it translates to The Style. I forgot what language this is in, but I'm not even going to try to pronounce this because I'll butcher it. But this is totally the most underrated. I'm not just saying that, like, this is like the least popular White Stripes album, but this is my favorite White Stripes album, and I love it, and it deserves so much more recognition. And my two favorite songs on this album are Apple Blossom and I'm Bound to Pack It Up, and I love those songs so much, and I hate that this album is so underappreciated, but I love this. This is one of my favorite vinyls that I own. And then I, of course, have their most popular album. I have their least popular and their most popular album, but this is Elephant. And this has possibly my favorite gatefold ever. I just love this images. It just has this picture of Meg's feet standing on this stool in this dress, and then it has this beautiful picture of them dancing, which reminds me of the Fleetwood Mac cover. But I love that gatefold so much, and I love them and this album so much. And my favorites on this are obviously the classic Seven Nation Army, In the Cold, Cold Night, which is the first time Meg ever sang on any of their albums, so I love that, and The Hardest Button to Button, and Girl, You Have No Faith in Medicine. I have my boys' 5 Seconds of Summer's album, Sounds Good, Feels Good, but I get really upset because this skips on Jet Black Heart, which is my fault, I scratched it, but this skips on Jet Black Heart, which is my favorite song on the album, and so I don't play this that much just because I get irritated because Jet Black Heart is messed up, but I probably should listen to this more because every other song on this album is beautiful too. And my favorites on this album are She's Kinda Hot, Jet Black Heart, Waste the Night, Vapor, San Francisco, and Outer Space. Then my last normal 12-inch vinyl is another one that's really special to me. This is the soundtrack to 16 Candles, and my mom actually gave this to me for my birthday on my 16th birthday, which I just think is really cool. And she bought this in the 80s when the 16 Candles movie and soundtrack came out, so that's just really special to me for those reasons. I'm not a huge fan of the music on it, but I do like the song 16 Candles, which is probably my favorite on here. There's also a Patti Smith song on here, which is really good, and this is just special to me. Then the last thing that I have to show you is something really awesome. This is a box set that was my grandparents', and my grandmother is an Elvis fangirl. Like, she loves and loved and still loves Elvis like I love Harry Styles, and she has every Elvis album on vinyl. She won't let me have the rest of them, but she gave me this box set, which I really love, because this has all of his golden records or his #1 hit singles on it, and it's 4 actual vinyls, and it has all of his #1 hits on it. And my favorites on this are I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, Jailhouse Rock, Can't Help Falling in Love, Viva Las Vegas, and Suspicious Minds. So I really love this gift set, and I'm really thankful that my grandmother actually gave this to me, because she's very particular about her Elvis stuff, and she actually has it in her literal will that when she dies, all of her Elvis stuff goes to me. That is in her will. So she's serious about it. And I have my short vinyl 45 collection, which I'm just going to go through really quick. And yeah, so several of these I also got from my grandparents. And, you know, 45s aren't really a thing that people put out anymore, unfortunately. I wish people still put out singles on 45s, because I'm that kind of person. But anyway, this is one of my grandparents, and it is Please Please Me by the Beatles, with From Me to You on the B-side. She Loves You by the Beatles. As you can see, my grandmother was a huge early Beatles fan. She actually hated them once they got weird, which is when I love them. But so she was like, oh, you can have all my Beatles stuff, I can't stand them. So that worked out pretty well for me. So this is She Loves You with I'll Get You on the B-side. It is I'm Happy Just to Dance with You with I'll Cry Instead on the B-side, and I love the song I'm Happy Just to Dance with You, so I'm glad I have this. And then I have another one of my stepdad's, which is Witchy Woman by the Eagles, and this has Early Bird on the B-side, and I love this. And I also have this one, which I begged my grandmother to give me, because this is one of my favorite Elvis songs. I actually don't think I put this as one of my favorite Elvis songs when I went through the box set, but this is Little Sister with His Latest Flame on the back. And then I have the original Fleetwood Mac single of You Make Loving Fun, which was my stepdad's, which makes me so happy that I have this, and this also has Gold Dust Woman on the B-side, so I love this. Then I have a Frank Sinatra single, which also belonged to my grandparents, and this is New York, New York, and this has You and Me on the B-side. I have another one that was my stepdad's that went with the full album of this, and this is Double Vision by Foreigner, just the single, and it has Lonely Children on the back. And then I have one that was a gift from my cousin Kate, and it is Rooms on Fire by Stevie Nicks, and I love this song, and I jam to this so frequently. And Alice is on the B-side. And then I have the other one, which is from Stevie's The Other Side of the Mirror album, and the other big single that came out from that album, which is Whole Lotta Trouble, and this has Ghosts on the B-side. And Ghost is one of my favorite Stevie Nicks solo songs, so I'm so happy that I have that on vinyl. And finally, last but not least, the last thing in my entire vinyl collection is this wacky Record Store Day exclusive single from One Direction, which is Midnight Memories. And I have a bone to pick with One Direction because the entire Midnight Memories album is not available on vinyl, and that is my favorite album by them, and I would so have that on vinyl. But all I have is the 45 of them wearing their ridiculous outfits, and it has the Midnight Memories single on the front, and it has a live edition of Rock Me on the back. So yeah, that is my entire vinyl collection. I hope you enjoyed watching it. vinyl is one of my favorite things in the whole world, and music is one of my favorite things in the whole world, and this is my favorite format of listening to music on. So I hope you enjoyed. Comment and tell me what vinyl you have, and what vinyl you want, and what you think I should add to my collection, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.